Okay, so I know that I've talked about this topic before in the past where I talk about gang stalking, but in this video, I want to go more in detail on um, the emotional, I guess, damage that perpetrators inflict on their victims and how being stalked and harassed 24/7 for a long period of time can affect someone's emotional stability. So, for those who have common sense and empathy, I'm only speaking to you. When you have somebody follow you for, let's just give an estimated number, for 40 years, 40 years every day, from the time you wake up in the morning to brush your teeth, from the time you eat dinner to the time you take a shit before you go to bed. Imagine it could be one person, two people, a group of people, regardless. Imagine having a perpetrator who is relentless on invading your privacy, invading your personal space, um, enforcing conversations, trying to reconnect, trying to enforce that power and control will. Imagine having, and I'm pretty sure that for those who are fans of my content, you know what the power and control will is. But for those who are new and you don't know what I'm talking about, I strongly would advise that you go on the battered women's justice project and you type in type in the search engine power and control will, and there's actually, I believe, about two, maybe three videos on that website that go in depth on the power and control will, and they talk about, like, step by step how abusers maintain control over the victim's life by using the power and control wheel tactics. And so basically what they do is, they take away your financial freedom, they attack your strengths, they assassinate your character. Some of them will even go as far as to blacklist you so that you can't get a job, so that you can't provide food for yourself and your family, so that you can't have any independence or self-empowerment. That's the whole point of the gang stalking, and also with narcissistic and just purely abusive relationships. um, the abuser uses the power and control tactics to maintain their sense of harmony, which is narcissistic supply. Now, in this video, I really wanted to go in depth on how that type of behavior, that lack of empathy, that type of psychosis can be detrimental for a health for someone who was probably born healthy, and they may be trying to make a life for themselves, and they're always having to constantly deal with a gang stalker or a group of gang, because most of the time when it's gang stalking, it's the key word, the root word is gang. So, well, in my opinion, so gang, I mean, it's just multiple people involved. Now, for some people, when they're being gang stalked, they may have one person who's like the puppet master, the ringleader, the boss, the big boss. Sometimes that is the case. And then there are some instances where, and this is very unfortunate because I think it's worse, but if you have a group of people who are equally just as crazy as the ringleader, because 9 times out of 10 there is going to be a ringleader. It's just a matter of, are the people following this person because their life is in jeopardy and they can't necessarily just get up and walk away? Or are these people following this leader because they're crazy and there's something's mentally wrong with them for real, for real. Like this ain't no joke. They cray cray. They cray cray. They ain't crazy. They loca. Loca with no mocha. No mocha loca. You know, I'm just saying, like some people are just like that. And so they had birds of a feather flock together. So even if some of the people who are participating with the main perpetrator may not necessarily be as crazy or as ill, have an ill will, um, the fact that they can associate with someone who, you know, stalks, harasses, and bullies other people, something it has to be something wrong. I can't. I don't want to start, attacking anyone's character, but I'm just making clear that someone can't possibly be healthy and be around a group of gang stalkers or just one gang stalker without there being something wrong. Now, this person doesn't these people don't necessarily have to be narcissists themselves. They could probably possibly be good people, but they're toxic. But it's something wrong there to where you can still be cool with, be friends with, affiliate, associate with, and support someone that goes around gang stalking people. And for those who don't know what gang stalking is a very, very, very serious offense. It is illegal to gang stalk. Stalking and harassment is illegal, first of all, and gangs are illegal. So if you put two illegal concepts together, that's a double whammy. So anyway, let me skip through all the flying monkeys and the flunkies and the middlemen, as this the video is not for them. Okay, so the psychological damage of continuing to be a targeted individual in a world that is supposed to be progressing is a concept that is very hard for a new age person to digest. Now, maybe for the elders, you know, they probably are aware that, well, stuff like this happens, so you got to be careful. And if I can be entirely honest, the youth back in the days is not the same youth now, meaning, the self empowerment, that you all, the elders, may have received from their elders, and the school and the education system maybe back then was different. I can't speak for the education system. I can't speak for my elders, ancestors. But what I can say is, in new age society, the youth nowadays, they intentionally make us more naive and gullible to psychopaths. So, I hear every day, predators look for young people, and they always have and they always will. But the youth today is different from the youth back then. They didn't, we didn't, our parents weren't always able to teach us everything, because nowadays, because the government has so much control over the parents and the families, you know at least the 90s baby, speaking for myself, we barely even saw our parents in the home because our parents were so busy working to try to feed everybody. And then 90s babies, we had to go through, the recovery from the crack era, and then the backlash of the beginning stages of, well, not beginning stages, let me rephrase that comment. We had to go through the backlash of receiving government assistance, which means that the government immediately expected for there to be no father in the house to even help, which was a part of the agenda. But the point that I'm trying to make is the youth now is different from when we were back then. You see all these drugs that are coming out, you see all this propaganda on the media. Like, even I can even say that 90s babies had it much different than, 2000s babies, because at least we had cartoons, at least we had hip hop. That was about the last of it left. The way that things are going, it's getting worse. And the youth, a lot of us, we don't have that guidance. A lot of times we're born in this world as cavemen, and that's not an exaggeration. A lot of the youth, 90s babies on up, were born as cavemen. Why do I say that? Because we're forced to learn. We're basically, the government basically fucking forces our parents, to leave us home alone to figure everything out for ourselves. And we have to teach ourselves how to bathe. We have to teach ourselves how to eat, how to chew, how to clean up, how to, be responsible. And that's a lot of responsibility to put on a child. A lot of us have had to go through this. Speaking for nowadays youth. And I'm not saying that the elders of today's society didn't have to go through that, but it's different. There was morals, there was principles from back in the day. Now the powers that be, the man, the Illuminati, the occult, whatever you want to call them, they're going at such great fucking lengths to try to like control every fucking thing. Now, do y'all notice that? Like nowadays, like there's more people getting killed, and by police. There's so much going on that the government has their hands way too much all up in our personal lives, and not enough in justice. Not enough when it comes down to societal boundaries, law and order. There's not enough there. You know what I'm saying? And this is why stuff like the gang stalking has been able to manifest into a legal criminalization. And what I mean by that is like a legal a legal um organized crime. Legal organized, I'm gonna say legal crime organization. There we go. And I don't mean that in a good way. I mean that in a, like, this crime organization is literally out there committing crimes and getting paid by the local government to do those things. Instead of, I mean, have y'all been watching the news? I know I don't watch the news very much. I don't watch TV very often. But do y'all see how many homeless people are outside? How big the homeless community has gotten in the past, what, 10 years? I don't know if it's just me, but is it getting worse? It looks like it's getting worse. Like damn near everybody's losing everything. Even people who may have been a 2, 3, 5 paychecks away from being on the streets themselves, they always somehow provided a way. Now it's like, god damn, you go to places, the cheapest places in the United States, and you know what I'm saying, it's crack prices. God damn. But anyway, god damn. Canadian prices head ass. We not even Canadian and we got damn Canadian prices damn near at this point. God damn. Anyway, so the way that things are set up, and because we the youth, we don't really have that guidance anymore. Because the powers that be, or should I say the man, is intentionally putting the community in a situation where we have to depend on them. They're intentionally putting the community in a position to depend on them. And anybody that decides to do the right thing by calling the bullshit out for what it is, calling a spade, and saying, hey, look, um, you are doing this, this, and that. You're doing all that fuck shit. Um, we, the people, want you to stop. We, the people, are not benefiting from this, and it's illegal. So stop. That's what 9 times out of 10 is what a whistleblower does. And so what the government would do, I don't even want to blame. I'm gonna be honest. I don't feel like it's fair to blame the government, to be honest. I know people probably thinking I'm crazy, but the government, just like religion, is just a system. It's the evil intentions behind it that makes it a cyst. The government is just a system. The evil intentions behind that government is what makes it a cyst. Okay? Let me make that clear. Now, now let me finish what I was saying. Okay, so basically, no, honey, come here, baby girl. Come here. Come here, baby. Yeah. Come here. Sorry about that. Come on, honey. Come on, baby girl. Yes. Oh. Hi, baby. Come on, baby girl. Come on. Come on, Goblin. Bye-bye. Come here, bye-bye. Oh, gobbles. Gobble, gobbles. Come on, Goblin. Okay, excuse me. Yeah, so basically, anytime that there is a whistleblower that decides to stand up for themselves and do the right thing by calling out corruption in high places, a lot of times the response is not, oh well, thank you for checking us for abusing our power, or maybe we, something slipped and we didn't notice and something, and oops, my bad. It's, oh no, we're gonna send ex-military, but we're going to send veterans, retired veterans. We're going to send police officers. We're going to send gangbangers, rapists, psychopaths, and anybody that society disapproves of your way, right in front of your doorstep. And we're going to have them watch you, and we may even allow them to break in your house and do whatever they please, because that's how little value we have for your life since you've exposed the corruption. And I know that's blunt. I know I'm blunt as hell. Like, you know, look, I know, because, like, the thing is, though, there's some things that you cannot sugarcoat. And this is why I make adult content. I mean, there's some things that I make for kids, but for the most part, when I'm talking about narcissism and gang stalking and all that, this is for adults because the topic is dark itself. And because of my personal experience, the conversation gets much darker than this. So I just want people to understand, to empathize with the fact that not only are the crimes bad, but it's like basically like, how, like, if you play, say if you play a football game, right? And you're playing the Super Bowl, and you got one of the two best teams playing. You get the, I don't know, you get the Packers versus the Cardinals. That's who's doing really good right now. So say if you get those two teams in the Super Bowl and they're neck and neck, and at the very last second, the Cardinals scored the final touchdown. Or even worse, let's make it even worse. Green Bay goes undefeated the whole season, and then at the Super Bowl they lose at the very last second. Now, I'm pretty sure that for those who are athletes, you understand how a lot of people bet on those type of games. So I'm sure you can imagine that as an athlete, or maybe even as a gambler, that you know what I mean, like, fuck, I mean, excuse me, messing up messing up the flow. I can only imagine, how it could piss off the teammates, the fans, the gamblers, so on and so forth. So imagine if you're dealing with a victim and this person has been beaten, battered, bruised, just they've been through all types of hell with their particular abuser. And they do everything they can to, like, stand up for themselves, to go get some help, to go get treated for the wounds and maybe even possibly infections, to possibly, kind of like turn their life around so that they can, walk away from the experience a survivor and no longer victimized, right? Because that's what most people want when they have gone through something traumatic, whether it was abusive or if it was just a freak accident or something like that. People want to bounce back from that. and they want to continue to move forward and not look back. I would imagine, especially when it comes down to an abusive situation that could put you in a situation where you feel like you have no power, no control, no say so. You know what I mean? You've just been completely destroyed. Most people, I would imagine, would want to bounce back from that and almost as and heal so well to the point where it's almost as if the abuse didn't happen. Not like they're trying to suppress it or be in denial about it, but it's just like, most people, if they've gone through that, they want to heal to a point where the scar is invisible because it's healed. You understand what I'm trying to say? So imagine putting a victim in an environment where they have to see their abuser every day, all because they're a targeted individual and they're a part of the gang stalking Stasi program. Damn. Just imagine being raped, sexually assaulted, your child killed, your animals killed. Because, okay, because I'm trying not to overload you guys, because when I was making these videos at first, it was coming from a place of anger and hurt. But when I make the videos now, I try to be a little bit more mindful of people who have not been abused, but they have a healthy level of empathy. I don't want to be overbearing, on that level, but I just have to keep it real with y'all. If For those who are not targeted individuals, I don't think you will ever truly understand the horrors of being a targeted individual when you're an innocent person. I don't think you will ever truly understand fully what that's like. And I don't want you to under I want you to empathize, but I don't ever want a good person who's never shed the blood of another innocent to go through what I had to go through. What I had to go through was the most cruelest experience of my entire life. And I truly did not know better in the sense that people could be that cruel and that mean spirited and that evil. I didn't know. I didn't know no better. Come here, babies. Excuse me, let me get my babies. Honey bunny. Goblin honey bunny, it's time to go. Come on. Time to go. Come on, honey. It's time to go. Y'all finna get left. Come on. Don't be all up in people bushes. Okay. Yeah, so as far as like my experience, I would never wish this on my worst enemies, even though they probably deserve it. I couldn't, like, the pain, the physical pain, the humiliation, the suffering. I would never wish this on anyone ever. Like, I don't want anyone to ever have to go through this, but unfortunately, some people are given a shitty deck of cards, huh? I tell you that much. It's bullshit, but everything happens for a reason, right? But anyway, so being a targeted individual who was gang stalked every day, speaking for myself, it was one of the hardest experiences I ever had to go through. And I'm still going through it today, to this day. It hasn't stopped. Um, Imagine if everything you love, what it doesn't matter what it is, being destroyed before your very eyes. Say you have a dog, and a stalker decides to kill your dog and leave the dead dog in front of your house, or your gang stalker decides to attack one of your children, or a gang stalker will, by the police permission, break into your house and assault you. And in some cases, the federal government will trick the people, whatever. Like, say if you're in a hotel or maybe even a house or something, or not a house. I meant to say apartment, and you have to get keys. So because the government has so much power, they can get a copy of your key to your apartment and break in. And because the gang stalking program is a federal organization, they do actually have access to everything. They have access to your phone, they have access to your car, they have access to your home, they have access to your children, they have access to everything. And they abuse it, especially if you're on the blacklist. If somebody blacklisted you, it could be your family. It that's a damn shame. But you can have family members, your own mother, your own child, your own brother, your own sister, whoever is closest to you could be that one person to put you on the list to ruin your life. Um, but basically, honey, Goblin, come here, babies. So basically, the worst things you could possibly imagine. Now, imagine those crimes that were committed against you happening for 50 years, 20, 70, 45, 72. The gang stalking program has been here for quite some time. And some people have been through it as long as it started. And I can only imagine how painful that is to go through. So I just, kind of wanted to go in a little bit on how going through that type of abuse can drive someone to scorn or even have vengeance in their heart. There's a lot of people, have a tendency to be dismissive, and they say, oh, well, just forgive and forget, or let it go, or don't let it get to you, don't think about it. Very dismissive statements. But the reality of it is, if you've had your individuality taken away from you and your freedom, your sense of self-worth, it's not always easy to just overlook it and get over it. So this type of behavior, dealing with people, it could drive a person to murder, it could drive a person to suicide, it could drive a person to just really snap. And so I wanted to make a quick reference to anger management, because that was actually one of the movies that kind of helped me um, cope with just everything that's happened to me. um, that was one of the movies that kind of just, for those who are being gang stalked, I would recommend you watch that movie, Anger Management, with Adam Sandler and Jack Nicholson. I strongly recommend you watch that movie, because if you struggle with anger problems due to the gang stalking, or just from being in a domestic violence situation for long enough, for too long, just know that I understand, and I would recommend that, um, watching that movie, because I just basically learned that there is explosive anger and then there's implosive anger, and I could relate more with the implosive anger. So why do I say that? He was basically explaining in that movie how the explosive angry types are, what you would call the more overt assholes, which um those are the ones that you see snapping on the waitresses, or kind of just being loud. And then the implosive angry types are the ones who suppress, 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 and then one day they just snap and shoot everybody in sight. Now, I know that's graphic, but it's very similar to what the child bullying we see when we see children shooting up schools and stuff like that. They're doing that because they're being gang stalked. 9 times out of 10, they're doing it because they're gang stalked. Now, there are some situations where you're dealing with somebody who has a mental illness, but a lot of children are being gang stalked, and that's not okay to put a child through that. But basically, the tactics that are used to essentially put a targeted individual in their place can drive a person to implosive anger. And the reason why I say implosive instead of explosive is because in the beginning stages of the gang stalking program, before we even notice that we're being gang stalked, for the most part, our anger is expressed explosively. And this is a lot of times an attempt to assassinate a lot of our characters and to discredit our integrity, so that when people start asking questions and they start wanting to get down to the bottom of what's going on, you won't be a credible source. Your alibi won't it won't hold any weight. So I just want to show you something really quick. You're not going to understand why I'm showing you this, but you'll understand later. Okay, I don't know if you guys can see this, but it says Mom's Demand, endorsed by Mom's Demand, and then the name says Sarah Tyree for Arizona State Senate. Okay, I'm not gonna make any comments on that. I just want y'all to take that information in what I just said. It's a sign. It's somebody running for governor, I think, Republican governor. But I just wanted you guys to get that little piece of information, because when people put the puzzle pieces together, it's gonna make sense later. It may not make sense now, but it'll make sense later. And because the sign that I showed you doesn't really have much to do with this video, I'm not gonna talk about it right now. But it'll come up later, and you'll know why I read that post out loud. You'll know why I read that sign out loud. Anyway, so yeah, and the reason why I say that targeted individuals will have a tendency to be implosive is because the beginning stages, before we notice that we're being gang stalked, we express explosive anger. And a lot of times the reason why we do it is because we don't know what's going on. We don't know why it's happening. We don't know who, but we just know something's wrong, that we're being mistreated, and that it's not fair. A lot of times we're blindsided when we start noticing that we're being gang stalked. It was a bait and switch. A lot of us, we don't see it coming, because our enemies a lot of times were plotting us on us for quite some time. And when we start finding out, their long deep their tentacles were long deep into our hearts, when long before we noticed. So in the beginning stages, when we notice that we're being treated unfairly and it's not fair, we start to express explosive anger. This is where we start, kind of, a lot of us targeted individuals start trying to warn the people around us that are participating in the gang stalking to stop. This is where a lot of us will start to enforce boundaries. This is the explosive anger is basically, I think it's a subconscious warning to our abusers to stop. When we start getting explosive, when we start getting angry on that level, we know that subconsciously, whether we're aware of it on a conscious level, we know that something's not right. We're not being treated fairly. And yeah, we know something's wrong, that we're not being treated fairly, and that we're being abused. We may not know where it's coming from and who, but we know we're being abused. And so the explosive anger is a way to express that, hey, I'm aware that I'm being mistreated and I don't like it. It needs to stop. And if it doesn't stop, my anger is going to only get higher. That's the beginning stages, at least speaking for myself as a targeted individual and those who share a similar experience and will know, share similar symptoms, you know, they know what I'm talking about and they understand. And if for those who are not TIs and someone that is, ask them, hey, is everything she's saying like, you agree, or have you been through that? Like, because it's good to become educated on stuff like this, you know, because we can't keep using that excuse of, you know, um, I'm not educated, because if we don't take the opportunity now, that information may not be there anymore. So there's that. But no, I just wanted to say though that after the explosive anger, because a lot of times, when we are being gang stalked and we do have that explosive anger, it sometimes, most of the time, it's misdirected. Sometimes it unfortunately goes to innocent people that we misinterpret as perpetrators. And that I would like to apologize on the behalf of targeted individuals for that. Good people who have no idea what the hell's going on. Not all of us are crazy. Some of us are actually targeted individuals, and we're either going through that explosive anger, or some of us are tapping into the beginning stages of that implosive anger. And it's not your fault. I know you probably like, well, damn, I ain't do nothing to you. But the reality of it is, if you knew what that person went through to gain their freedom, you might understand more. So that's why I'm willing to bridge the gap between targeted individuals and law-abiding citizens. So I just want you all to know that, at least for me personally, the explosive anger was what happened to me first, and I did unintentionally take it out on people who had nothing to do with the abuse, because I didn't know. I didn't know what was going on. All I knew was that I was being mistreated. And then when things started to become more clear on who was the problem and what was the problem, things are still kind of unclear, if I can be entirely honest, but I am being honest to the best of my ability. I want the community to know that. But basically, um, the implosive anger comes when, after the explosive anger, nobody, like, say for instance, an assault happens, or unfortunately say a murder happens, and it's reported and the police don't do anything. That's strike number one. Say if the targeted individual on top of that is assaulted, that's strike number two. You know what I'm saying? Say on top of that, um the abusers keep showing up at this person's house, showing up at this person's job, you know um putting their personal business out to the employers. That's strike number three. Now, say if the abusers, smear campaign gets to the point where it gets the targeted individual fired, or their reputation was ruined, severely ruined, to the point where they weren't able to recover from that. That's we're already on strike number three. You see what I'm saying? So, and a lot of people, it's hard for some people. It's hard to bounce back from that, especially when a perpetrator, a gang stalker, has ruined your reputation. Because when gang stalkers ruin your reputation, when they isolate you, and when they take away your human rights, and when they steal from you, and when they do all these things to you, the police turn a blind eye every time. It's been that story for me where I was human trafficked ever since I was a child. Do you understand me, community? I was human trafficked ever since I was 3, and my abusers are still in front of me every day. The police haven't done shit. That's bullshit, isn't it? A 3-year old being being forced into a hospital, or or a hotel, or some strange dude's house for paid sexual services from 3 years old till now, and I'm having to still deal with my abusers no matter how many times I've moved, no matter how many times I've ignored them, no matter how many times I've walked away, no matter how many times I stood my ground, no matter how many times I enforced boundaries. Do you understand me? I still have to see my abusers every day, and the police have not done a thing to help me. So imagine you being put in the same position as me, your childhood ruined, your early adulthood ruined, and you don't know how long it's going to last. You don't know, because it gets to the point where you lose count. You don't know how many perpetrators there are because you lose count. You don't know how many times you've been sexually assaulted because you lose count. You don't know how much money has been stolen from you because you lose count. You see what I mean? You see how that persistent abuse that has been extended for longer than a decade can have an emotional effect on me and other people? Because I'm not the only one that's going through this. This is not all about me. This is not all about me. There are innocent people that are going through this. And not only are there innocent women and children that are, and vulnerable men, like they're doing this to children. Community. Everything that I just told you that happened to me, they are doing to a child. Now imagine you have a child and you have an animal, right? I know this is dark, so this is a trigger warning for those who don't like graphic conversations. If you have a photographic memory, and that triggers you, you don't like those type of topics, I would highly suggest that you leave my channel right now, because I'm going to talk about it, and that's what my channel is here for, to talk about the dark topics that people don't want to talk about. Now imagine if you have an animal and a child, and it's 8 o'clock in the morning, you're cooking your child breakfast, and your kid wants to just take a little step outside. And you let them, like, hey, parents, can I go outside for 5 minutes, come back inside when breakfast's ready? Sure, go ahead. They open the door and they see their dead cat that they've had ever since they're a baby, dead on the concrete because a perpetrator wanted to attack you. Imagine having a child having to open the door just to take a breath of fresh air, opening the door to see their childhood cat dead with blood all over the concrete. How traumatic of an experience could that be for your child? Now imagine if that same child was forced to see their parents being abused by the government, by the occult. Imagine how degrading it is for a parent to have to watch their child, watch them being abused and not being able to do anything. I only can imagine as a mother or as a father how disempowering and how just I can only imagine how that could make a parent feel. You want to protect your child, you want to show that you are strong, and all your child sees is abuse. All your child sees is you having to beg for chump change. All your child sees is you being raped. All your child, like, children have to witness this. Like, I really want people to be fully aware of how bad the gang stalking gets, and how when police kill innocent people and ignore situations like this, how this makes it look bad on humanity. This looks bad on the human species. This looks bad. And, for the police to know that stuff like this happens and they do nothing about it says a lot about their intentions. It says a lot about their honor, their integrity, and their character. If you can be a police officer and know what's going on and do nothing, you have no conscience. None. To be able to harm an innocent family and a child. Mm-mm. So, like I said, I just so I'm bringing this up not because I want to throw a pity party. I don't want people to be depressed. I just want people to be more aware of the fact that not everybody's crazy. And you know what I'm saying? Like, not everybody's crazy. Some people are angry and hurt because the gang stalking has ruined their life, all because they wanted to help. They wanted to do the right thing. That's what I wanted to do too. And I'm telling you this now. A lot of targeted individuals will tell you, you know, all I wanted to do was do the right thing. All I wanted to do was stand up for myself and stand up for the community. The community didn't know what was going on, so I felt like it was within my right to say something, to use my First Amendment right to speak. Not making terroristic threats, but to inform the community about possible dangers. And that warranted me getting raped. That warranted you attacking innocent children to enforce your power. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it gets really, really, really deep, y'all. But I really do want you guys to look more into the gang stalking. Not just the gang stalking, but I also want you to look into the targeted individual's testimony. Because if you go to these government websites, such as the news, such as the History Channel, stuff like that, they're not really going to tell you much. They're only going to tell you what they're being forced to tell you, or what do I mean by that? They're only telling you what they know you know already, or what they know you're going to figure out. They're not telling you anything new. They're not putting you on game. So when the news covers stories like these, they're actually taking credit for other people's hard work and watering it down. That's what they're doing. That's often at times what the news does. You know, they're a faux report. I'm sorry, I'm bashing the news. I am, but this because I mean, for people's lives to fall apart like this to the point where they ain't got no other choice but to cover stuff like this says a lot about their news station. Like I said, it's not these organizations, it's not these programs that are the problem. A lot of times we like to try to blame the programs and the organizations and all that. They're not the problem. They are not the problem. We keep trying to scapegoat a system No, we need to hold individuals accountable. We need to hold people accountable for what they do and what they say. We can no longer blame the book because a person wrote it. It is people who enforce the rules of the Bible or enforce the rules of religion or enforce the rules of the government onto other people through abuse. It's not the rule itself that needs to be crucified. How are we going to crucify a rule? If we burn the Bible, it's not going to. I mean, well, it'll feel something because it is it is an element of this earthly realm. But the point that I'm trying to make is you're not going to hear a Bible screaming when it's on fire. We need to hold people account. We need to stop blaming the animals. We need to stop blaming the Eiffel Tower. We need to stop blaming the Twin Towers. We need to stop blaming the aircraft. We need to stop blaming the technology. We need to stop blaming the cars, the oil, the soil, the dirt, the earth. We need to stop blaming the earth. We need to stop blaming all of these entities that coexist with us and are solely responsible for our human existence. We need to stop pointing fingers at that. We need to start actually pointing the finger at ourselves for seeing abuse and not reporting it. That's number one. Number two, we need to start holding ourselves accountable for when we hurt people. When we hurt a person, including ourselves, we need to take accountability for that as a community. When we hurt someone and we knowingly hurt someone, we need to swallow our pride and apologize and then ask for forgiveness and then let this person forgive. We need to stop always trying to put blame on the victim. We need to stop, you know what I'm saying, trying to dodge responsibility. It gets you nowhere because you will always be running from something you will never escape from. Because accountability, taking responsibility for one's own action is a vibe, it is an energy, it is a force. So if you keep trying to duck and dodge, the force will always find you. And this is what plays a part in the implosive anger that a lot of targeted individuals go through because a lot of our abusers don't take accountability for their cruelty. They don't take accountability for their scars, their childhood wounds. They don't take accountability. And then when they're facing when they're on trial, then they want to say, "Oh, well, no, 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 no." When people started noticing the red flags in your behavior, they were asking you why you were doing. No, no, fuck all that. Let's keep it real. Let's go ahead and take the gloves off. Because a lot of abusers want to play victim when they know that they're basically essentially their lives are over. Let's just keep it real because they weren't saying all this when people was asking questions like, "Hey, why are you behaving like this?" That was the time to say something. When people were asking you, "Why did you attack this little girl?" You should have said the truth right then and there. But a lot of times when we're dealing with these gang stalkers, they have so much vanity and pride in their hearts that it's really, really hard to cooperate with them. Their narcissism runs so deep within their souls that anybody that tries to help them would have a better chance of leaving them behind to rot than to help. Anybody that has had an experience with a narcissist or a gang stalker, and 9 times out of 10, a gang stalker is a narcissist. Not all narcissists are gang stalkers, but all gang stalkers are narcissists. I'm very confident in that. Okay, because there is a difference between a gang stalker and an enabler. An enabler is not a gang stalker. Enablers don't got time to stalk people. Gang stalkers are gang stalker. There is a clear line. There's no gray. There's no blurred. No. Gang stalkers are clearly that. Gang stalkers. It doesn't matter if they're if they physically abuse you or not. They're gang stalkers. If they're gang stalking you, they are gang stalkers. Now, enablers, on the other hand, they don't, most of the time, they don't go that far. You know what I mean? They'll only do what is required. Like, say if the abuser will say, go ask that girl, go ask this person this. The enabler will only ask that question. They won't be following you around. They won't be doing all that extra stuff. They will only do what is required. 9 times out of 10 because their life is in danger. I want people to be very, very aware because the thing is, because this topic is not talked about often, a lot of times there is a misunderstanding between targeted individuals and people who are looking at everything unravel from the outside in. Like they're looking and they're probably thinking that we're all crazy. Enabler, abuser, target individual. They're probably looking and they're not really able to tell originally who's the victim, who's the enabler slash victim, and then who's the flying monkey slash abuser number two, right? Like it's hard to tell in the beginning stages. Now, some people are able to catch it right away because they have an eye for it. Kudos to you. I'm clapping for you. You're a genius because it took me a very long time to figure any of this out. But if you know now, hey, you deserve a job as a detective. If you're able to know on spot without knowing anything about gang stalking, you're able to know who the victim is, who the villain is, who the enabler is, and who is the flunky. You deserve you basically you need to be taking out you need to be replacing a lot of these people who are claiming that they're investigating and they're not. And then you need an automatic raise too right after you got hired. I'm so serious because I truly do not blame anyone for not having any idea who the victim is and who the victim is not. It is not easy to tell off site who the villain is. Actually, you might actually find out who the victim is first before you find out the victim because, if you're dealing with a gang stalker, especially a gang stalking ringleader, they know everything in which they can do to cover their tracks. And they will even throw their flunky under the bus. Their right hand man, they will throw that person under the bus before anything happens to them. Okay? So I just wanted to make that clear. So the reason why a lot of times we targeted individuals are kind of provoked into an implosive reaction is because it's the exact same experience as childhood bullying. You talk to your teacher, and in some cases, you talk to your parents, and for some of us unlucky souls, they do nothing. They do absolutely nothing until things go too far. And that's very unfortunate. But for a lot of us, that's our story. And so if there's no one to check the bully, if there it really if there's no one who has a high position of authority to check people at the bottom that are acting wild and crazy, it's bound to get out of hand. It's bound to get out of hand. And I guess the only thing that I wanted to say was just um, if a person has to go through abuse and it gets worse, not better, their reaction to the abuse is only going to get worse, not better. You know what I mean? Because like gang stalking is not your everyday. Oh, you got an asshole boss. Like, no, that's not what gang stalk. A lot of people misinterpret what gang stalking is because they don't know. They a lot of times I've actually heard from people that have never been gang stalked that the first term that they heard was actually not gang stalking. It was another term. I can't remember what it was called. Star program? No, 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 no. I don't know. It was some. I can't. If I find out the name, I'll let you know. But a lot of people that were not gang stalked heard it as a different term. So they when they heard gang stalking, they didn't connect the dots because that wasn't the term that was originally used. It was something else. I'm going to find out the name and then I'll come back. Now Stasi was one of them, but that's from Germany. But there was another term that they used. It was an American term. It was a term that they used. I want to say during the Vietnam War, or was it attack on Pearl Harbor? It was one of those wars where they changed the name of the gang stalking program because they didn't want to be connected to the Holocaust. And I'll talk about that later. But basically, the reason why they changed the name to it's not gang stalking is actually not even the title. It's called Neighborhood Watch. That's what they call it nowadays. But before Obama was president, they called it something else. But I don't remember the name. I wish I knew it and I could give you guys that information. But when I do find out the name, I will definitely let you know in the description below the name of the program, the name of the program before they called it Neighborhood Watch or street. Then now they're calling it street watch. They can't call it neighborhood watch now because if you've noticed, the gang stalking programs are not set to help a person. They're set to sabotage and destroy the strong people, right? So now they have to call it street watch. Want to know why they call it street watch? Because they were successful in their agenda in dismantling someone financially, psychologically, spiritually, and emotionally. They basically just neutralized you into poverty and homelessness. So they went from calling it neighborhood watch to street watch. Why? Because most of the targeted individuals are sleeping on the streets now after everything that the program has put us through wrongfully. And a lot of times we filed lawsuits. A lot of times we got the police involved. A lot of times, like we targeted individuals, a lot of us didn't just lay down and go to sleep. You know, a lot of us put up a fight, and we were undermined by the United States government. We were undermined by the United States government. The only reason why, for some of us, the gang stalking wasn't as bad as it was before, was because some of our abusers are on the run. Now, I'm talking about it today because the reality of it is, um, us targeted individuals, we are truly, truly suffering. We are. All of us are. Every targeted individual that you can ever think of on this earth will tell you that they are suffering and that they want to know when it's going to stop. Because most of them, like, if you're thinking like an innocent person, right? Because let's just talk like we're thinking like an innocent person, right? You know, act like a gangster, but think like an innocent person. I'm just playing. No, think like a gangster, act like a. Let me stop. I'm playing too much. No, no, no. But what I'm really trying to say is, put yourself in the mindset of an innocent person. You get people who you thought really liked you, you know, cared about you, support. You thought that these people were family. You thought that some of these people were your friends. You know, you thought that, you know, everything was good and peachy until you started noticing bad luck happening. Just all types of bad luck. No matter what you do, no matter where you go, you know, no matter if you do everything right, no matter what, you always seem to have bad luck. You know what I mean? Just thinking from an innocent person. If you ain't do nothing, you didn't run over anyone's dog, you didn't instigate, you didn't pick a fight, you know, you didn't spit in someone's coffee. You know what I'm saying? You didn't do anything like that. You really just lived your life. And then you get people who just like randomly out of nowhere start following you home. Like out of nowhere they start following you home. Or out of nowhere you start noticing that the same people that are following you home all of a sudden are working at the same place you're working at. Or say your favorite grocery store that you like to, that it's like 5 minutes up the road from your house, right? And then you start noticing those same people showing up there too, right? And it's like, that's strange. And then it gets to a point where you say you got to go run errands, and then you find more people, more familiar faces that you see, and it could just be a coincidence, right? But is it really that many coincidences for a decade? Is it really that many? I'm just curious to know. Is it that many coincidences? Because maybe the world's just trying to tell us something that hey, we cross paths now. Maybe we're soulmates. No, I'm joking. I'm absolutely joking. Maybe that was a wrong time for that. But all I'm saying is, like, to have to look over your shoulder because you're noticing that like people are stalking you. Some of them, most of them are people that you've probably never seen before, or you see occasionally. You may say hi to them occasionally, nothing big, but you see them, and then you see them often. So say you taking your dogs out on a walk, and then you see them, and then say you use a public restroom, and then you step out the restroom stall, and up there they are again, right? And then say you're walking down the aisle in a grocery store, and you see them again. And then say if you are applying for a job, you see them there again, right? There's a pattern. That's every targeted individual's experience. Now imagine a child having to go through that. Because children are more impressionable. You think us young folks are impressionable? Imagine a child. Now a young person would be like, okay, that's kind of strange. You coming off a bit creepy. But a child is like, depending on that child and what they know, they will be receptive, especially if that stalker is clever, right? Like, oh well, your mom told me I'm cool with your mom, and she just asked me to check up on you to make sure. Very, very, very slick, very slick. But the reality of it is, children, they don't know better, and even us young people, we don't know better, especially if we don't have that proper guidance growing up. We don't know. We don't know. So, that. And then, okay, so this is the last thing that I'm going to talk about because I know this video is kind of long. But this is really the main thing that kind of this is what I wanted to express in the first place. But I was building up to it. I wanted y'all to, I wanted y'all to see or to understand, what goes on in the background first before I start talking about that implosive anger. Because too many innocent people have been arrested because the community, or maybe even the system, might have thought that they were crazy and may not have realized that, oh shit, this person is an actual victim. Oh my god. Oh shit. You know what I mean? So, um yeah, let me say something about that before I go in there. Yeah, it's a lot of people where, I think, and this was like during the early 2000s, where a lot of people were being arrested because they were snapping on people in public. Like, for example, there was this man who, um, he was in a grocery store, and then he came outside and he shot a man. I wish I will find that, article, and I will show you. But he was arrested, and he was able to plead insanity, and um, yeah, he got out of prison in about less than a year, but he had to go to a mental institution though for like 2 years or something like that. For it was like a third degree murder, but he had to do a little bit of time in some community service, all that. But basically, they actually ended up finding out that he was a victim. The system actually ended up finding out that he was a targeted individual and that he was being severely abused and he had reached his boiling point. And so he shot someone. He shot his cousin. Now, the details on whether or not his cousin was a perpetrator or not, that's that's a good question. I think deserves an answer. But Yeah, that definitely deserves an answer. But most of the time, and I hate to shatter people's paradigm. I'm not doing this to be a jerk. I'm not doing this to divide and conquer. But people need to know that a lot of the times, the people who put us on those black lists are the people that are closest to us. I mean, because the stranger doesn't really have motive. You know, most strangers, if they don't know you very well, they don't have enough motive, even if they're like the jealous type. Most jealous strangers, if you don't give them enough access and you kind of stay away from them, they don't really have a motive to destroy your life unless you've reached high status and they know it, and you are a public figure, and everybody knows it, and a lot of people know you. Then most of the time, that's when you'll notice a jealous stranger attack. But most people don't attack for no reason. They need a motive. Unless they're a psychopath, they need a motive. Even sociopaths need a motive. Psychopaths are the ones that just go around killing, and when they get that adrenaline rush, they'll kill for no reason. But even some of them are a little bit slower to kill nowadays. But most people need a motive. Most of the time, there is a motive, and when there's none, no probable cause. So, for that being said, if you're wondering how you all of a sudden got on the blacklist, 9 times out of 10 it's somebody that you know, and it's somebody that you're close to. And that is unfortunate to have to break that news down to somebody that they love and are loyal to, and that they probably take a bullet for, will be the one to put the bullet in you. That's unfortunate, but that's what happened to me. And I'm not saying that that's not every targeted individual's situation, but that was mine. It was in house. I had to deal with some people that didn't like me very much, and instead of expressing that so that I can walk away and leave them alone, they blacklisted me and destroyed my life. Instead of just being like, "Hey, I don't like you, leave me alone," they blacklisted me to be attacked by the satanic occult. What are the reasons for that? I don't know. I don't know. And honestly, I want people to be a little bit more aware on the people who claim to be targeted individuals also, because most targeted individuals are not going to be able to just give you an answer as to why they were targeted. Like, most of them don't even know why, or if they do know why, they know the reason, but they don't know all the details. It's very they're like, so example, if you're dealing with the signs to know that you're dealing with a real targeted individual, um and I'm gonna make a video about this too, is that their answer is kind of vague. It's almost as if you're talking to a patient with amnesia. Okay. But basically, um their answer is very vague, or it's in one sentence. Now, a lifetime of abuse is not one sentence. It's much deeper than that, and it's much deeper than that. But they don't know, and it's the agenda behind the occult to make sure that the targeted individual does not know why they're being targeted. It basically, their agenda is to make sure that the targeted individual doesn't know anything. And the more you know, in some cases, the worse the gang stalking gets. And so most targeted individuals don't know what's going on. The more they know, they'll probably be homeless by now. I'm just keeping it real, because the more they know, the more they'll share with the community. I tell you that because I didn't know what was going on. If I had any idea what was going on to me, what was happening to me, I would, first of all, I would have not let it happen for as long as it did. That's number one. Number two, if I had known that they were hurting innocent people and children, I would have never let that slide. I want to make that very clear. And I'm pretty sure a lot of other targeted individuals who are probably just now waking up to the fact that they are targeted, if they knew they were being targeted, they probably would have had the power to be able to defend themselves. And um, the Stasi program makes sure that a targeted individual is not able to do. If you're throwing rocks and hiding your hands, 9 times out of 10, if no one exposes you, because they'll die if they do, no one's gonna tell that you were the one that threw the rock, right? No, seriously, think about it. This is why a lot of times enablers don't say anything. This doesn't excuse their neglect because it is abusive, but let's just say enablers got a lot more on the line than we targeted individuals do. They're in a lot more danger than we are in, believe it or not. And I'm sorry that I'm calling them enabler. I feel like I should say codependent, because I do feel like there's a very thin line between being codependent and enabler. Not all codependents are enablers, and not all enablers are codependent either. I'm gonna talk about that in a later video, but I'm gonna get to the point now, because this video is kind of long, and I'm getting tired of talking about this topic right now because it's very very triggering, and I'm pretty sure that this is, like, this is a lot of information to take in. So let me just jump straight to the point. The implosive anger, that is very complex for me to explain because it's a covert process. This is a lot of times the point that it gets to when you start kind of seeing a lot of innocent people going down and a lot of criminal justice. Okay? A lot of times you will see the innocent person going down and a lot of criminal justice. So, it's basically like a bully waiting on the teacher to leave the classroom, throwing a spitball at their target, and then when the teacher walks back in the room, putting the straw back in the pocket like nothing happened. And then when the kid says, "Hey, you spit a spitball at me," the bully can always say, "No, I didn't." And if the rest of the class decides not to speak up, or the rest of the class decides that they're just going to ignore it or even defend the bully, this is where you know the difference. You'll know the difference between the enablers. You'll know the difference between the bullies, the beta bullies. I like to call them beta bullies because that's what they are. The ones who defend the abuser and justify the abuser's behavior and even support and help the abuser. These are beta bullies. The ones that don't really have the courage to bully people on their own. So they'll follow an alpha bully. They'll follow, and they like to watch the alpha, bully other people, but they won't get their hands dirty. Either because they're kind of smart like that, they're covert, or they're beta bullies. Um, and so this is where a lot of the times, if you get, it's bad enough to have one bully. We've seen in many movies, in many different situations, how having just one bully, one relentless bully, is enough to cause a lot of damage, and it could get somebody hurt or even killed. So imagine having 20, 30, 100, 200, 2,000 bullies against one person. And then these bullies in high numbers are attacking this person every day, every which angle. So if it's not the bullies on the west side, it's the bullies on the north side. If it ain't the bullies on the north side, it's the bullies on the south side. If it ain't the bullies on the south side, it's the bullies on the east side. So at that point, it's nowhere else to go. Where else can you possibly go that, I mean, because like target, like, this is no joke. Like, when they target people, they're very serious in their intentions, and it's very diabolical, very diabolical, very diabolical, very cruel, unnecessary. But you have to consider the type of people that we're dealing with. Okay. Um. So imagine, right? this could provoke a person to strike, right? Because if you're going through this for most of your life and you see no signs of progress, you don't see that, you're receiving any help or anything like that. It's just abuse on top of abuse on top of abuse daily. No matter what changes you've made in your life, you're still attracting the same experience. That is, in my opinion, sabotage in every angle. That is situational sabotage. And that's setting a person up for social anxiety. And that's very diabolical. Very, very. Now imagine the puppeteer, the puppet master behind all that being your mother. I said that. Imagine the very person who brought you in this world that's supposed to nurture you, build you up, cook for you, speak life into you, do the exact opposite with such evil intent. Imagine how scary it is. A child, a tiny baby child that could barely walk, barely speak, having to provide prostitution services for grown men because your mother forced you to do that. And then you get enablers and flying monkeys that say things like, oh, yeah, you liked it, you wanted it, you enjoyed it, this was your choice, this was your fault. Nobody told you to be this way. You should have changed. You should have been different. You should have been better. You shouldn't have been gay. You don't deserve to live. You deserve to die for your choice. If you don't change your mind, I'm going to take you out. I've had to hear all of these things from people. Oh, I brought you in this world so I could take you out. I've heard terrible things said to me. I've heard people say, oh, you're a dyke. You're a bald headed bitch. And this is like less than hours after they found out that I was diagnosed with leukemia. Like, come on, man. You know what I'm saying? It was just like, imagine you having to go through that. Your hair falling out because you're sick. Um, your weight going up and down. Just like so much. Like you just lost your apartment. You dropped out of school because of the gang stalking program. All because of the gang stalking. And you get people who say the most horrible things that you've ever, like, I'm saying, like, they know what happened to you. These flying monkeys, they know what happened to you. And a lot of these gang stalkers, they know what happened to you and they make fun of you. Uh, it's horrible what we targeted individuals have to go through. It is our own personal hell. They say things like, right after, you've been raped, for an example. They'll say, oh, yeah, I bet she liked it. And, oh, yeah, check to see if she's pregnant. Yeah, she's probably pregnant, that hoe. I've heard that. Somebody said that to me. And I've seen other women be treated like this before, too, where they were like, I actually